welcome to the Jennifer James Show. Today we have my two dear friends here, Erica Davis Frimpong and Christy Record, and today we're going to be talking to you all about life as a mompreneur. But before we get started, I'll have the ladies introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Erica Davis Frimpong. I'm the founder for Annie-Admin Solutions and Bellissima Babes Boutique.
Hi, I'm Christy Record, and I am the owner of, I'm not going to list all the businesses because there's too many, but my main business is, I'm a wedding planner, so Swanks for Ray is my wedding planning business.
Awesome. And so today we're just here to, just kind of inspire all of the mompreneurs out there, or inspiring women or moms that are looking to step out there to become entrepreneurs, that may have questions or just unsure about what that journey looks like. We're just here to kind of talk to you about what our journeys have been, what that looks like, why we decided to step out and be entrepreneurs, and what those daily duties looks like along the way. So Erica, if you can start about talking about just some of the services that your business offers and just kind of how you even got to where you are today.
I actually have a background in banking. I fell into it magically. It was supposed to be my pit stop job while I figured out my life. That was 10 years ago. And so in that time I worked with small business owners. So I was always on the business banking side. And I really enjoyed that, really enjoyed helping people kind of achieve their goals. But I always knew that I wanted to be on the other side of the table, perhaps. But I didn't know what that was. And so I didn't know what my talent was. I don't really have a gift per se, like to plan events, or I'm not a hairstylist. I can't make furniture. I felt like I didn't have anything tangible to really offer people. But I know that I have a heart and mindset of wanting to always help people. That was kind of my, good side and the downfall of my life, is that I always want to help someone. And so I just really got really quiet with myself, probably, I think it was like the summer of 2013 before I had my first child. I found myself really frustrated with life. I was going to work every day and I was really unhappy. I'd come home and I'd complain, and my husband at one point told me, I don't want to hear it anymore, do something about it. And so I was really upset with him, because I felt like you're supposed to listen to me.
To support me.
Yeah, listen to me vent. I just had to get quiet. So I didn't go out, I didn't watch TV, I didn't do anything, and I just had to figure out what is it that I can offer to the world and make a living doing it, because, Wells Fargo Mortgage is still owing their bill every month. And I just realized that I could help people, small business owners in particular, make their days a little less stressful, make their job of finding somebody to hire, help them with their business a little more cost effective. And so that's where Annie-Admin came in, and I just worked on the business plan that whole summer, and then we launched the following December for that. So the goal really is just to make sure that we're making sure that our clients are taking care of all their back office activities, from answering their calls, scheduling their appointments, doing their social media, handling their invoicing, payroll, collections, anything like that, that we can, make that a lot easier for them to manage.
And you're a mom of how many?
Two boys.
And a wife as well.
Yes.
So how is that?
3 boys.
So how was that part of, your planning for stepping out there and doing your own thing? Was that?
I just realized that once I had my first child, I wanted more flexibility, to be able to be there and be present when I felt like I needed to. And so with work, while the role that I had as the vice president of this bank here locally, while I had some flexibility, I really didn't.
Right.
There were certain things I just couldn't do. Right. If my child was sick and I just wanted to be at home with them, I couldn't just be like, hey guys, I'm going to take off for 2 days because
right, my kid is
coughing and I just want to be a mother today. It didn't work like that. And then I just felt like, okay, if I really grind it out and put in the time and put in the work now, when he's 5, 10, 15, and he really has a life going on, I can be there because I want to be there. And that was really the driving force behind it. I wanted a better life for not only myself, but for my children.
No, I hear you. Christy?
So I have never liked working for people. I think that has a lot to do with my personality. My husband, in premarital counseling, the counselor coined us as freedom and then him structure. And that has been who I am for probably the majority of my life. And so for me, I never liked working for anyone. And so I would go through these phases of job hopping, and I would go back and forth, like you were saying, or one of you were saying, you didn't like being somewhere and you'd always go to the next thing. So that was me. Probably like every year or two, I'd find a new job.
Right.
And I decided one day, hey, and this is like right before or right after I had my first child, I'm not doing this anymore. So I was like, let me start this business. I lived in California and I decided I was going to be an event planner. Had a business partner, and it just kind of, we both weren't devoted the exact same way to the business. We were going through different life changes. I was having a baby. And with having a child, there was this income that needed to happen. So I went back to work. But I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I picked up my life and I said, California doesn't work. I moved to Texas. And when I moved to Texas, I met my husband. And I worked a corporate job here for a while because I needed to. Obviously, I had to pay bills. And what drove me out finally was stress and anxiety. So the stress and anxiety of, like you said, wanting to pick up your kids, the daycare calling because they're sick, and you having to ask permission.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah.
Can I be a mom like today,
right,
and then go back to work?
Right. That was like the hardest part. And so one day after I had my third child, I was sitting at my desk and I was just like, he's sick. I think there was a tornado going on here in Dallas, and I'm just like, oh no, like I'm not. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I think that was my last day at work. And I had been running the business in the shadows.
Right.
Of the
I know
shop,
what you mean.
and I have been doing really well, so I was really stressed out too with that. Like, here I've got this really great job, but then I've got these kids and we need this insurance. And there was just all of this juggling, and then you're married, so there's this conversation that has to happen about leaving this corporate job. But yeah, so I had been running Swag Spray all that time. And I had tons of clients, and it was just becoming too much for me. So I decided that I was going to leave. But for me, when I initially started Swank Spray, it was for event planning, for like parties and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this will be fun. Not until realizing how much work it is.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a ton of work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's
a ton of work. And when I got to Dallas, I got into the wedding industry, and I love it. And so part of my ministry at the church is I'm in the marriage ministry.
Right.
I am married. I'm in the marriage ministry. And so for me, the weddings, they're a really big deal. I don't work with everybody. So just because you come to me doesn't mean we're going to work together, because we need to make sure we're a good fit.
Right.
You have to understand that I'm involved in a little bit more than just your wedding. Like, I want your wedding to be fabulous, but I really want in the process for you to be working on your marriage.
Right.
And so, or your impending marriage. And so that's right. And so for me, that's the biggest thing about it. I think, like you said, for small businesses, you want to help them focus on getting the back office stuff taken care of so that they can go out and sell.
Yeah, revenue.
It's kind of the same thing for me. So I want you to be focused on this marriage that you're about to enter into, and so I want to take over the stress of planning a wedding, because they're very stressful, and they take up quite a bit of time. So for me, I just love it. Like, it's 15-hour days and sometimes 20. But I wake up the next day tired. I don't want to move out of my bed, but I promise you the next day I'm like, I'll do it all over again.
And I'm glad you brought that up, the long days and just what that looks like. Because I really want to touch on just kind of giving people insight on what is your day-to-day duties. I'm talking about as a wife, like, what's the first thing you do when you jump out of bed? And how do you make sure lunches and kids get to school, they get picked up in time, that you're fulfilling your schedule during the day, and that you have time with your husband when needed when you get home too? How do you balance it all, or is there really a balance? What does that look like, Erica?
I don't feel like anyone can achieve. I'm really leery of the word balance, because I feel like a lot of people have this image of perfection that you're supposed to achieve with this work-life balance, and it's just so happy and you're just so zen. I really don't think that exists. I think that you just have to be present in whatever you're doing throughout the day. I will say now, when I was working, I just left my corporate career on December 2nd, which was my son's first birthday, as a gift to myself. But when I was working in corporate America and running the business, it was chaotic because I was stretched so thin. Yeah, so my husband could ask me the smallest thing, and it was like, automatically. And he's looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm looking at him like, what is wrong with you? But now that I am fully self-employed, I try to, it's not an everyday thing, but I try to do things to let my husband know that he's special and he's important to me first thing in the morning. Like, I make him breakfast, give him breakfast in bed. It's not an everyday thing. Right. A couple days a week. I make sure that my son, he just started preschool, that he's taken care of, you know, give them both baths, love on them, kiss on them, give them breakfast, get them out the door. So that's what my morning looks like. It's quiet, but it's chaos. But it's very structured in the sense that I know I have to do this. I need to get up a little bit earlier so I can kind of have some alone time with myself to get my brain around what I need to do for that day. Drop my kid off, go to the gym. That's my time. Like, you can ask my husband, I get irritated when he calls me and I'm at the gym. It's like, you know I'm at the gym. Why are you calling me right now?
What do you need?
Exactly. You know, and so exactly. It's like, that's my time to just be Erica.
Yeah.
I'm not someone's mother. I'm not someone's wife in that moment. Thereafter, I come home and I get ready and go into the office. Some days I work from home, some days I work in the office, so that I can make sure everything's going, the way it really needs to be. My days are very strange now. Like, I used to work this kind of 8 to 6 schedule and then come home and work till 1 in the morning if I needed to when I was working. Now, I kind of truly work between 11 and 4.
Yep.
Go get my kid, give them dinner, we all sit, enjoy each other, give them baths, get them to sleep, spend some time with my husband, and then I may work some more. There's some days where I do, there's some days where I don't. It just depends on what's going on. From that standpoint, I do like the flexibility, but I don't want to give any misconception that it's like just some leisurely life that I'm living right now. For instance, I got my kids taken care of last night. My husband pitched in a lot, which I was thankful for, because I went back upstairs and worked for another 4 hours. But I think you just have to be cognizant of your marriage. I'm a big believer that if you don't put the time in with your spouse, all the stuff with your kids really won't matter, because if you all fall apart, what are we really talking about here? So I really do make sure that we spend quality time together, whether that's just sitting in our theater and watching, Netflix binging on all these crazy shows that I would never spend time watching. It's just so that we can be together. We don't have a babysitter, so we don't get to go out all the time. It's like, well, let's just sit here and enjoy each other. But I think that's really crucial, because it keeps us both energized and wanting to help the other person. But you also have to have a really supportive spouse, because if you don't, dream chasing as a woman doesn't really go well when you got kids and someone that's not supportive of that dream, and family too, just because it takes way more than us trying to do it all. So
I think you brought up a good point. Me and my husband are both entrepreneurs, as both of you guys are, and I think we had to stop talking about business every time we were together. So it was almost like, okay, the kids are put down. I don't want to talk about bills. I definitely don't want to talk about kids. And I don't want to talk about business. So we had to find time to step out of that, because sometimes we work from home. Sometimes my husband goes to the office. I currently don't really have an office right now, but we just had to start dating outside this environment of our home. You know what I mean? We had to start actually putting things on the calendar. The good thing is we do have the flexibility now. We actually do lunch dates. It doesn't have to always be at night. Sometimes we do brunch dates, on Fridays, or go to the movies, but we try to find time to spend, ways to spend time with each other other than always talking about business. Sometimes he helps support my business and I help support his. So it was very important for us to separate the 50 million hats that we wear throughout the day and just make sure that our marriage, like you said, absolutely comes first. What is your insight on that as well?
So it's been really hard for us, mainly because my husband and I are both entrepreneurs, and so I think for a long time we fought on whose business was more important. And so that was the initial fight, and who should be doing what, but if I get to, how come you don't get to? And I think the biggest thing for us recently is that one of the things we did is we've been talking to some spiritual counselors who reminded us of our roles. And I think that it's been the hardest on me in terms of having to recognize that even though I have this successful business, my children and my husband and my home come first. And so I've had to fill out rules in place. So there's things that we do, like I get up in the morning, I take one of the children to school. Immediately from there, I go straight to my office, I go to work. So that gives me a head start, because before, when I worked from home, let me just tell you, like, if I brushed my teeth, I was doing good. I was like doing
no
laundry.
Yeah, it's like free Neely in it.
Right. So I was like doing laundry, I was cooking, and I'll be at the computer, or, you know, just different things. Or I end up on Netflix. I'm my boss, right? So it was a lot of lost productivity.
Right.
So being at the office really helps. And I leave my office at a very hard 3 p.m. Like sometimes 2:50 to make sure I get to him on time. I don't do after school. We used to do an after school program. I stopped that because he was having some issues, my 4-year-old in school. And it was just kind of like, okay, he's spending too much time at school away from home. Let me pick him up earlier so that he could be at home with us. And if I really need to do something, I'll pop my laptop open when we get home, because he takes a nap at that point. But that has really helped out, because now I'm home. I have a schedule and it works out that way. I try not to work on Mondays if I can, just because if I have an event the weekend before, so if I have a wedding, I'm gone from my kids that Friday for rehearsal, and then usually that morning whenever they start hair and makeup, and then I'm not home until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So they literally don't see me all day Saturday. So for and sometimes, and actually don't see me from Friday afternoon or from Friday when they get up at school, because rehearsal, usually they're getting home, they're taking baths, eating dinner, going to sleep. So when I get home, they're asleep. So one of the things for us, in that, like you said, with your husband, in the morning, we had to institute, we wake up and have morning prayer. So before anybody puts a foot on a bed, puts a foot on the floor, excuse me, we get together and we have prayer. We pray about our kids, our family, our marriage, just everything. So that's the first thing that we do, to spend the first part of the morning together and with God. And then after that, we both have responsibility for one child. That's how we balance that. The oldest child is a teenager, so he can, he knows what to do. But the other two are young, so he has responsibility for one. I have responsibility for the other. We agree to come home at a certain time, except for in his busy season. He does taxes. And we're at home by a certain time, and then we're a family. We also have rules. I put my cell phone down at like, I think at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, the cell phones go on the fireplace, and we're not allowed to take them down. So that we can have family time. We're in tune with our kids. My oldest hates my cell phone. He's like, "You're always on your phone." I hate it. Like,
so just to have like just more of a structure.
Yeah,
so that's one of the highs too of being a mompreneur, that you can set your own schedule.
Right. So that's one of the highs. One of the lows is that somebody always wants you. It's a little bit different when you
have to respond.
Yeah, when you work when you work from 9 to 5, you left that job and you was like, peace. Like everybody here
is missing money. Someone calls.
Right. And you see those people who are like, is it Friday yet? I'm like, I don't even know what Friday is. Like, please. And as a matter of fact, because I have little kids, I'm like, is it Monday yet?
And you go back to school.
Yes.
So what are some of the things, so we kind of talked about the highs and lows of work balances and what our day-to-day looks like, but what are some things, whether they're books, scriptures, or maybe there's particular sermons you listen to, and maybe it's just you simply getting on your knees and praying, like you mentioned. What are some things you do when you feel stressed and overwhelmed and just feel like, gosh, this is a big barrier to cross, along the journey. Like, is this even worth it? What are some things that you revert to? So for me, in particular, I love 2 sermons by T.D. Jakes, although I am an OCBFer, but Dr. Tony Evans, love him to death. And there are 2 sermons that I listen to, T.D. Jakes, and one of them is Coming to Focus, and the other one is The Power of Commitment. And those things help me, because there's a lot of times I feel like I'm sacrificing a lot to even be able to be an entrepreneur as a mom, whether that's friend time or family time or vacation. I can't brunch every Saturday morning. There's just things I can't do as a mom in particular. So there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with this. And so I feel like coming into focus helps me focus on what I'm trying to do and narrow the focus down and understanding that this is the season, that I'm in. And the other one is The Power of Commitment. And it just reminds me that nothing comes overnight. If finances aren't looking like I want them to come, or certain situations, just know that I'm just planting seeds and setting that foundation right now. And over time, if I stay committed to this journey, all things will come to pass. So what are some things that you all do when you're feeling overwhelmed or revert back to as a guide?
Kind of like you were saying, my husband and I, we pray before we get out of bed. We used to do it individually, and now we do it collectively. It's just a way for us to stay connected. I have to realize that I need him, like, in my day, to make sure that everything stays on track. But one of the things that I love doing, I'm really into reading different books to just keep me motivated and pushing along. But more than that, what I'll look at, if I feel like I'm overwhelmed or how am I going to climb this mountain, how am I going to get this task done, I just look back on the past. So I feel like a lot of times as people, not necessarily as women, we feel like, oh my God, the bottom is falling out and I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. But think about the last time you felt like that and it passed. You got through it. You know, God helped you through it. So that's usually where my mind goes anytime that I find myself very stressed about a situation. I'll think about the last time I felt that same way and, you know, miracle, it's already been taken care of. This year was particularly very crazy for us. We experienced all types of things, job loss, just, you know, health scares, family members, different things going on. Anything that you could think that could knock me off the plan that I had, you know, that I felt like God gave me 3 years ago, happened. And so there were so many times where I found myself thinking, it's not going to happen. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. You know, I have these clients. Am I really going to be able to service them? We're growing at this certain pace. But yet I'm not in a place where I can yet take on another employee because there's 3 of us right now. And there's just different things that just kind of stress you and you can mind think something to death. But I think you just really need to focus on God has already brought me through A, B, C, D, probably all the way to Z. You probably named 26 things that he's brought you through. So why would he not be able to get me through this? And so the one thing that I have to tell myself is I'm not Superwoman. I want to do everything myself. I want to solve everything myself. I want to fix it all. And I just really had to come to grasp with the fact that I'm not Superwoman. And I don't claim to be, and I don't want to be really at all. And so let me just sit back and just let him do what he's going to do. And so if people, I think, if we would just focus on the fact that God put this in your heart, you know, God put your vision for my active ego in your heart, it wasn't a lie. Like, it wasn't something you just thought of. So let him do what he's going to do to help you achieve those different things. And I think we create more stress for ourselves just trying to constantly manipulate our lives and do it ourselves. So it's hard. It was a hard lesson. It's probably the biggest faith walk I've ever had in life and brought me closer to God in trying to get this business up and running. But if I sit back, shut up, just get quiet with him, I notice it really all takes care of itself. And then when you look back, you laugh because you're like, oh, well, this was turning into this and this was happening for this reason. But when you're in the midst of it, you can either make it worse or you can make it better.
And it's hard to see because I see people in my life now that I just never really knew why they're in my lives. Right. Now they're just even YouTube ladies. You know what I mean? Like, who would have said 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we'd be sitting here talking about all the commonalities that we have with just being women. So, so what about you? Like, what are some scriptures, books, or what do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed? When you're on a big journey?
If you walked into my bathroom on my side, on my mirror, I have a dry erase marker, and when I need it, and this is probably what helped me through some of the roughest times, though, is that I've always had, especially when I first left corporate full time, is I put on my mirror, let your faith be bigger than your fears. And that is because, like you said, or, you know, some of the things that I referenced before, which is, here's an example. A friend of mine the other day, we were having lunch, and she said something to the effect of, oh, you and your husband, you guys have your own businesses, and you're doing this and you're doing that. And it was almost in a like, well, look at what you're doing, and you have so much more than I do in that way. And I grabbed her hand and I said, honey, let me tell you something. With all of what you see comes a ton of sacrifice.
It does.
I was just like, if one of us got really, really sick, we would be in so much trouble.
That's true.
And I was just telling her, and I said, you know, it takes me away from my children sometimes, even though it gives me more time with my children. Sometimes it takes me away from my children. And I explained to her that, you know, I don't look at my account on Friday and see a paycheck deposited. You know what I mean?
You have to hustle and get your
right. And I said, and I explained to her, I said, you know, if a client decides that they're not going to pay, you become a bill collector, and if you don't get it, you have to have been so faithful and diligent in your money and your finances, a good steward, that you guys will be okay.
That's
I
right.
said, so it's definitely not as glamorous as it seems.
That's right.
It's give and take. I gave up some things
That's right. In
to
order
get
to
some
receive
things.
it.
Exactly.
And a lot of people are not willing to do that, and that's another thing.
I don't think they
It's not.
understand.
We don't get together and just drink and just
This
party
is-
it up every day.
This
We really
right.
have
This
to
is not housewives.
work.
Right. This is not housewives. This is real
I
life.
have to
right
pick
here.
and take up my children.
Right.
I have to cook and feed
Yeah.
them. You know,
Right.
it's a job.
I don't want to call out, like, I'm not going to name names, but I know when she watches this, she'll know it's her. But like my very first week after I left corporate America, a really good friend of mine, she called me and she was like, "Hey girl, let's go get lunch." And da-da-da-da. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm not even thinking about food right now. Like, I got things to do. Like, I don't have a paycheck. I need to hustle. I can't, like, I'll get back with you. And it literally took me 2 weeks to get back with her just to go get dinner. I was like, no, during the day, I cannot do that, you know, because if I'm sacrificing the time that I'm investing in my business, I can't be mad when it doesn't, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the lows that you can't just call out. You can't be like, oh, you know what, I'm tired. I'm not going to work today.
I know.
No, because there's no sick time.
No.
I had a friend. I'm not gonna call her out, but when we went to lunch, she felt like I could have expensed it on my business.
Oh.
Can't do that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some things that people think. I mean, we are entrepreneurs and we're business owners, but we're not multi-million-dollar corporations.
Not yet.
Right,
yet.
right, and that's the other thing too.
So-
There's no W-2, so when tax time flows around, we are paying taxes.
Yeah.
We are not receiving a refund, so we are not at H&R Block like, let's do this. We are at home like, when's the deadline?
Extension.
Right, there you go. There you go.
I file in October. That's why.
There you go. Exactly.
That's awesome. So before we close today, I did want each of us to go around the table and kind of give advice to all the women, the moms, and also the current moms that are entrepreneurs. Advice for 2017, just kind of the kick off a year strong. Anything you would, tell them in the midst of it all to just remember, while you're going through this journey, because as we know, that it's not easy. And we have a lot of women out there wondering this: how does so-and-so just juggle everything? Don't we have the same 24 hours, in a day? So what advice would you give someone that's looking to either jump into the entrepreneur world or that's currently there that just needs words of encouragement?
I would first say that we're not perfect. You're not perfect. It's like you said, we're not super women. There are days that, I took my boys to the movies yesterday. And I almost had a meltdown in the theater. Actually, last night I thanked God. Like, I literally prayed to God and said, God, thank you. Thank you for giving me the strength to take these toddlers to the movies. Both boys. One's like, I gotta go pee. Right? So I just thanked him for that patience, for one. So just know that you're not perfect. Know that when it comes to having children and have a family and wanting to have a business, that there are going to be some things that aren't going to go right. And be okay with that. That's the biggest thing. Is just don't expect that it's going to be perfect. That's probably one of the biggest things. The other thing is communicate with your spouse. If you're married, communicate with your spouse. And don't communicate like, oh, I said, make sure that they heard. Because if they didn't
Don't send a text message.
Yeah, make sure that they heard kind of what you were saying. And I would just say that pray about it. Like, that's the biggest thing, is that you really have to make sure that you heard from God before you kind of make that move. And I think that one of the things that our pastor says, and I say our, you should come visit, is that Tony Evans tells us that it's confirmation.
Yeah.
So it'll be confirmed 3 times before but get that confirmation before you jump out in faith. Because if you do it your way, it's not gonna. There's gonna be all these roadblocks that may not have been there if you had just been patient and you waited on it. And that's the other thing. So that's the biggest takeaway for you, is be patient. I started my business in 2004. I didn't fully leave corporate for the longest stretch of time. I left twice, but then I had kids and went back for insurance purposes. But the last time I left corporate for the long haul was in 2014. So it took me 10 years to fully birth out my business and be a full-time wedding planner, and it to support my house fully, and it sustain itself and give me everything I need, have an office out of my home, all of that. 10 years. Some people are watching it happens overnight. don't chase someone else's dream.
That's right.
Get what's for you, and God knows what He has for you in advance. So just don't go looking at someone else and say, but she did it, you're not Becky Sue.
That's
You're
right.
whoever you are.
Love it.
Wow. So I definitely agree with that. You know, if you really look at the full timeline, like we were talking about, it took 10 years for you to do that. When I originally first had the idea, I had a partner. We tried to do some things together. It didn't work out. We wasted a lot of money, time, energy, and effort. And then I walked away from the idea because I was just like, ugh, this was horrible. It was a horrible experience. And that was back in at least 2009, because it was before I was married. You know, fast forward to today. The biggest thing is I really wish that social media is a gift and a curse, because people see a glimpse of what's going on. They don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes that you're doing to just post that glimpse that they can see. And I think that a lot of people, women, you know, I have friends that have ideas and they want to start these different businesses and they want to do other things. They allow their fear to block them. And so I don't think any one person has more ability or talent than someone else. You just have to want it more.
Right.
And you have to have a plan. You can't just jump out the window. But you have to have a plan, but then you have to move your feet, you know, get to work. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up. They're constantly planning and thinking and organizing and trying to tweak and do all these things. In the process, you've wasted years.
And someone else is already on it.
Someone else is already on it. And then you're mad because you're like, well, heck, I was going to do that, blah, 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 you know. And it's just like, so do it already. But take the time to make sure that you know that your business model works, that it's sustainable. I had to get, I'm a numbers person, you know, being in banking. I had to get really real with our household expenses. And knowing from, you know, mortgage to Netflix subscriptions and all these other little random subscriptions I found out we were paying for that I don't know why we were paying for. You know, what are we really spending our money on?
That's right.
What is it really going to take for us to live? I didn't know that number. If you don't know that number, then you don't need to walk away from your job.
Good point.
So if you don't know to the penny what it costs for you to live, and that's eating out, that's all the fun things, not your bills, but what it really costs, you're not ready to walk away. If you don't know what it takes to earn, you know, enough revenues to sustain, not only sustain your business, but pay your expenses for your bills and your taxes, you're not ready to walk away. And I think a lot of times, you know, especially in my time in working with small business owners, people fail because they don't have a financial plan. Like, they don't even know what it takes to run their own business.
Yep.
That's half the battle. But the other part is you have to move your feet. You can't sit there and expect, like, okay, I'm in business now and all these people are going to call me. It doesn't happen like that.
They
Like,
don't
you
even
gotta,
know who you are.
Yeah, they don't know who you are. They don't know you're sitting in your house like with this grand scheme, and you know, and you may have a very awesome service or product to offer the world, but if you're not out there putting yourself out there, if you're not following up with people, it may take you 10, 12 times before somebody says, yes, you know, this is the right thing for me. You have to stay on top of your game, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they think there's some type of instant success. Like, I just have this great idea, or I have this great service and I'm really good at it and it should just work. It doesn't work like that. And that's the part that I wish, you know, people would be more real about, and that you could almost somehow showcase it. It's not pretty, so I'm not going to post it, you know? But it's like that's just the reality of it. And I think it's one part financial, one part having a plan and then acting on that plan. Versus overthinking everything and not getting anything done in the meantime.
I think both of you make really good points. I'm that friend that's had like 20 businesses.
Yeah,
and executed on like one, and that's the one that I have. I'm that friend that's also started businesses with these good friends. I had a couple friends in particular at the very end that we were all very good and had our own niche, but it just didn't work out. It didn't we didn't grow until we actually separated and did our own thing. And then maybe one day in the future we'll all come back together and do it. But the other point I want to make is you guys both described commitment pretty much. You talked about 10 years for your business, and you talked about being committed to your household and your family in terms of knowing the finance, the numbers, and just understanding what it takes. It takes commitment in order to do that. My advice is just stay committed no matter what it looks like. You'll have the good days and you'll have bad days, but staying committed to your journey is very important. the other part to, at least in my story, is having that foundation. I think that's very important. I look at something that our pastor once said, how vegetation occurs. When crops are growing or even flowers are growing, a lot of people grab the gift, which is the crop or the flowers, but they never really look at the solid foundation. And that's something that you have to have, what, coming from a spiritual end, just coming from within you, your family, and just knowing your boundaries and knowing what you have to do to get there. None of us could have built what we have on a shaky foundation. It just wouldn't work. So I think commitment, I know for a fact commitment ties into that, and being able to be stable and grounded in what you're doing and believing in what you're doing. So those are the tad bits of advice I would give, and just being patient. With that comes patience. Nothing comes overnight. Some people do have overnight, like you said, and it's great, but anything worth having is worth the time. So I would definitely say that's my tidbit of advice. Before we close, tell everyone how they can follow you and how they could look into more services about each of your businesses.
Yeah, you can find me at www.annieadmin.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram. It's all Annie Admin. It's really easy. As well as our boutique, which is Bellissima Babes Boutique. You can find us on IG and Facebook.
You can find us, I'm going to spell it because people usually can't, but so you can find me at swanksoiree.com, which is SWANKSOIREE.com, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all under those same handles. It's just Swanksoiree, the company, so it's facebook.com/the business name.
Awesome. And as you all know, you can find me at myactiveego.com. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at myactiveego.com. And you can also find me, Jennifer James, the host, at entreprenuer on Instagram. Well, thank you ladies so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun, and I hope all of you got all the words of encouragement and some of your questions answered. Please be sure to tune in next week as we discuss our new topics. Talk to you soon.
Bye.